Well, together here I am, a new kid on the block. My name is Tommy Kreis and I work for Festool in the training department, doing trainings for national dealers as well as for multiplicators in conjunction with end customers. And our today's topic is once more our 18-volt range in terms of everything that's got to do with sawing. And my colleague Julian, you know him from the last session. I'm pretty sure he might say a couple of words on his own.
Always a short introduction. Julian, if you've seen the other videos, you already know me. We used to do it in combination with Frank, but now we're switching it up a bit. So my job is basically not that different from Thomas' job, but I do the same thing, but visiting customers in their workshops, on job sites, just go out there, explain tools. I got a whole van stocked with basically everything you can get from Festool, and we're basically here to help.
So Julian, what is it we talk today?
Today's topic is going to be a continuation from last week, so it's going to be 18 volts. So all the cordless machines that we got, but focus today will be on sawing. So plunge cut saw, circular saw, jigsaw, and I think that's going to be most of it. Otherwise the video is going to be too
Am I right in supposing that this is your favorite?
Yeah.
So shall we gonna start with that?
Yeah, always
Okay,
start
so
with
let's have a closer look to that.
I'm gonna get the camera. Opa, hoopala. So there we go.
As we talk about a TS55, you know, it's a very essential tool of our 18-volt segment because, as you can see, we have a cordless saw that can be driven by two 18-volt battery packs.
Yes.
So what's the benefit out of that?
So basically, with the two battery packs, it has the same strength, the same speed as the regular TS55. So you can use it in any way that you would use the regular electric version. But you can also use it with just one battery pack, have reduced power, reduced speed, but it still works.
Does it work with any battery pack we have?
No, you gotta use specific battery packs. So we got 18 volts, 5.2 ampere. We got 6.2 and 3.1, and now we got the 4.0. The only ones that work with the TSC55 are the 5.2 and the 6.2. Either Bluetooth or no Bluetooth. That is up to you.
And this is because of the cutting length. Yeah. Otherwise, we get the performance, but we don't get out a short cutting length. So if I'm right, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yep.
Phil. If I'm right, we got from a battery charge with twin battery packs a cutting length of more than 30 meters out of a standard kitchen worktop. Is that correct?
Exactly. 40 mil particle board. That's exactly the length you get with a 5.2 battery pack. But if you're going to use the 6.2, you're going to get even more. But if you think about installing one kitchen countertop, you got to cut it to length, maybe once, twice, maybe 3 times if you missed something. You got to do some plunge cuts for the whatever the appliance is called. I forgot the word for it. Doesn't really matter. So you got like even the most 10 meters of cutting length. So you can basically install 3 kitchens, regular kitchens, with the 2 regular battery packs without charging them. It's a bold statement. Depends on your kitchen, of course, but there you just so you can see how far you can go with just the 2 battery packs.
So to all of you outside, you can run the saw only with one battery as long as you attach the battery pack on the bottom port.
Exactly. There's like a tiny picture on top that shows it. There we go. So you got, if the battery is on top but not at the bottom, it doesn't work. If there's one at the bottom but not at the top, it's slow. Both fast.
So why would I do that? This is a chance to run the machine everywhere the mobility and the handiness matches. So where you're looking for a lightweighted tool, that's the choice. If you look for maximum performance, then you attach the second battery pack like this. And as Phil mentioned in the earlier stage, that's a very familiar sound we know from our corded version, and that was the aim for Festool once we developed that tool. So we got the same performance and the same speed, and that's why we got the same quality cut out, like no matter whether you have a cordless or a corded version.
Exactly.
Well, beside that, all the settings are pretty much the same as we noticed from our corded saw.
Yep.
Such as depth control, right here. You can see we have an indicator for both solo machine, that means we work with the saw straight on the material, like this, or we use it in conjunction with our guide rail system.
So if you use it without the rail, you got 55 millimeters of maximum depth. If you're using it with the rail, you got 50 millimeters of depth.
That's correct.
Yes.
So
And what else you got?
what else we got? Nice track system. So as Festool or Festool was many moons ago the inventor of these guide rail system, so that's of course one of the very initial things, and that's the accessory that makes this particular saw so unique. So in conjunction track and the saw, we get dead straight cuts, we get a high quality cut in next to no time, and that's what we're going to show right now.
So there's a small amount of things that you got to consider and take into account before you use it for the first time, and that's what Thomas is going to show. Because if you're not going to adjust the saw to the rail, there's some tiny little screws.
Just disadjusted it, so you get this certain clearance, and this way of course you can't get out any precision. So you need to set with these little dials.
They're eccentric.
Once I turn it, I can set the width of this gap.
Yep.
And that's the way I reduce the clearance, so I take it completely out to make the saw run smooth and gentle over the track saw without having a partial clearance.
Exactly.
And in this condition, once I got a new guide rail with an overhanging lip, so that's when I get a certain marriage between the track and the saw and make it fit to that particular saw.
So you cut it specifically to the saw, basically. So it's kind of recommended to use one rail with one specific saw, because then all the adjustments work perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have millimeters as a tolerance, but there is a little tolerance from one tool to the next, and it might not affect the whole thing, but it could.
Yeah,
And
and that's
for
what you
sensitive-
want from Festool.
That's it.
Basically, the maximum precision you can get.
That's it.
Okay. So,
Well,
we got this adjusted. We've already cut the splinter guard.
from the earlier session,
Exactly.
got this.
So basically we can adjust the depth and then just make one cut, and then we can talk about the angle.
That's what I'm going to do. So we have a standard door, which is roughly 40 millimeter thickness. And at that point, I would set my cutting depth to the maximum depth of 50. So I got a little overhanging saw blade, which is next to ideal for a good cut. Finally, we have just one little prop. Means we are in an interior building site, as you can see. So we have to lift or to handle the dust somehow.
Yes.
Now I have a cordless machine, and maybe I have a normal standard dust extraction, a hoover, a vac, however you may call it. How the hell can I connect this? Yeah?
Yeah.
So the best possible solution is, of course, that you connect the dust extractor to this particular adapter. But together with the saw, we receive a dust bag.
So with a cordless version, that one is always included.
That's always included
That's handy.
in delivery. Yeah. And it's attached like this with just one half turn, job done.
Done. And
And
when
what?
it's full,
Once it's full, I mean
Okay.
that gives you in that particular thickness, I would say you might get out a cutting length of maybe up to 5 meters, and then you have to empty the bag.
yeah.
But it's something you might realize very quickly, because you have an enormous amount of dust that is surrounding your workplace. Now we're going to show you how efficient this little dust bag is.
That's important what you
Yeah.
just did.
I just push down that transparent window
Yep.
because that prevents from dust leaving the saw.
So it always do that. Most people don't know it. Always pull down that tiny little piece of plexiglass because it will always, if you use a dust extractor or not, improve the dust extraction.
Yeah, that's the point. So you want to catch as much dust as you can, and that's the way it works. Now we speed up the machine, we fire it up to the maximum speed, because the transport of the chips is done by the gravity. So the higher the speed, the more efficient your dust collection in this case is.
You can see it on the saw, there's a tiny arrow, that's the way the blade turns. So it takes basically all the dust, throws it up in here and out.
Collects it in the back.
In the back. So I'm just gonna film the floor.
Yeah.
Just so you can see there's some chips. It is not a real dust extraction, but it works surprisingly well.
For effectively or actively extracted tool, that's extraordinary.
Yeah.
There's nothing that comes close to it. And the result, as we have seen it before, is what you might have now in here. Now we have done in an earlier session
That's the second
more
cut
cuts,
now.
and that's actually the amount of dust we would have spread right here in our side.
Not as nice.
Not really. So how can we do it even better? Of course, if you use one of our famous Festool dust extractors, such as this one at the back.
Yep. So, thing is, usually the dust extractor you got that automatic starts if you plug in the cord, because then it will get the signal. Okay, I can start. The annoying thing now is I would have to go back to the dust extractor, turn it on manually, and then start the machine. So I got that awesome cordless machine, but I always got to do an extra step.
There's one little secret, or it's not a secret, it's a very convenient thing called Bluetooth. That's a technology we use as a kind of a radio, also between the connection of the saw to the dust extractor. So they are able to talk to each other, let's say. No matter in which spot you attach the Bluetooth battery pack, you just have to link it, like you link your cell phone into your car, and that's it.
And then you're good to go. And if you don't have the Bluetooth battery, if you have older batteries or a different machine,
there's another option. So the positive message, you don't need to buy an extra dust extractor.
Yeah.
All the dust extractors you have been purchasing, let's say in the past 9 years, are able to be adapted with this Bluetooth module we attached right here.
So it's a modular system. You can just buy that basically additional piece, plug it in.
Yeah. You get a set of that module together with this remote, and then you can drive your dust extractor from here. And tidy up before you continue.
Always nice and tidy.
So that's, as explained, that comes in as a set. And now how to link the battery pack to the dust extractor. All I have to do is press this button. Then you can see there's a blue light rotating in a low frequency. Once that appears, that gives you exactly 1 minute of time to do
that's why
something.
you take your time, because we're not in a rush.
Just be cool. Just click it on. Now you can hear, like we noticed from our corded source, we have a connection to our dust extractor, so he knows exactly when to start once the saw is running.
So
that gives you
super easy to apply, super easy to start. So the battery pack is now linked. I could use that battery pack, put it in a different machine, and it would still make the dust extractor start.
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
You can disconnect it from the saw, you can attach it to your HKC or your PSC, whatever.
Yeah.
Where it makes sense to have a dust extraction, that would work. you would lose this connection once you lose your power supply in any kind. So once you blow the fuse, once you switch off your dusty because you are finished with this side and you move to another side, you put it on the charger. Whenever you lose power supply, that connection is gone.
So just push the button again and then you're good to go.
Push it again.
Or
you have these remote control. Where you can see we have an additional little button right here.
Yep.
With the same symbol. Once I press this, you can see I can activate this coupling mode. That gives me again another minute of time, which makes it easy to. Makes it so comfortable to reconnect the battery pack once the power is gone.
super quick, easy, nice. So now we could make a cut, but with the dust extractor.
Yeah.
But
would you like to see the difference?
I would like to see the difference, and I would also like to see an angle cut later.
Alright. So we combine this both. That's a very important hint because, as we mentioned earlier, once we get the marriage between the track and the saw, this rubber edge is exactly our cutting line. So if you draw a line somewhere, it's quite easy to get a perfect cut because we can line up this transparent cutting edge on our pencil marker.
Yeah.
It's absolutely perfectly straight. So I'll give you another demo on that.
So the only time we basically get some dust is right at the end of the cut.
Yeah.
Because the basically the chips just fly forward instead of upward because there's no resistance.
Yeah.
But apart from that, there was basically nothing.
At the moment where your saw blade leaves the material,
Yeah.
this will get a tiny little bit of dust.
That's
So
just
nothing is 100%, but that's extraordinarily high.
Yeah. Okay.
So now, as we said, we don't move at all our track. So we just bevel the machine to any angle, whatever it might be.
So we got now something between 20, 25,
Yeah, I
26
didn't check it, but
Yeah, just as a reference.
or do you have a?
No, it's fine.
Yeah. So it should work. So what I want to point out is that Festool has a swiveling segment that allows the saw blade to accurately bevel along the bottom edge of our splinter guard.
So I don't have to move the rail or anything.
No.
Just make a mark, put the rail on the mark,
Yeah.
make my bevel cut, and be good.
Whatever the angle is, and you don't damage your cutting edge. That's the point.
Exactly. Perfect. I'm gonna go in close.
Yeah, and I move the guide rail.
Yeah. So we can see that that's where the cut ended, and there's basically
Check this off. You
no
can exactly
difference.
see that's the cutting edge of 0 degree, and spot on. This is where the saw blade under the bevel cut of 25 degrees was penetrating into the material. So it's exactly the same position. So in the moment we swivel the saw blade, so it moves a little bit outside to allow the bevel to turn around the lower edge of the splinter cut.
Nice. One thing that I like to mention, because it's a question that I often get from my customers, is that green piece. It's always included in the sustainer, but most people don't know what it actually is for, use it in the wrong way, or just maybe not at all.
That's an easy one. Okay. I made a similar experience. So guys, to all of you out there, Phil is talking about this little fellow that comes with a thumb screw, and it replaces, or it can be replaced instead of these transparent parts. So what does it do? This is an additional splinter guard, and the idea is, if you have to split a wider panel into 2 halves, maybe you want to have a clean cut on either side.
Yeah.
so far with this transparent part we would only get a clean cut on the guide rail side. With this attached green additional splinter guard, its width is a little bit wider. That means the actual saw blade cuts it in and holds the material down. So that's why we get with one go 2 high quality cuts.
So basically, it's the same as the splinter guard on the rail, but attached to the saw and on both sides of the blade.
It's not the same, but it's comparable.
Yeah, comparable.
Yeah. So, and of course, the positive message is that this could also be used under an inclination. So, because it's, let's say, height adjustable. Once you bevel the machine, you could also use it under a bevel cut. Same feature.
Perfect, because those are the cuts that you can see. Yeah. So, but first cut you do with a splinter guard is you gotta cut it to width.
Yeah.
And also you gotta attach the screw it down, because otherwise the blade will push it up.
Let me just show you how this looks like. So I remove the battery packs to prevent from any injury. This is, as you can see, the saw blade would now cut this new splinter guard.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. And as this one slides over the top of your material, it can't break out.
Exactly. So if you want to make cuts close to a surface, to a wall or something, it's not recommendable because you got that screw pointing out, the thumb screw. But apart from that, really, really handy. Okay,
perfect.
Then I think we got most of the plunge cuts. So, or do you want to show how you can change the blade?
If you like, we can talk about this because it's an extremely versatile saw, as you know. That means we can not only change the speed of the saw blade, we can also change the saw blade in next to no time.
Yeah.
That's quite easy and also neat. So from my point of view, a question to you as a professional, what would be the first thing you have to do if you want to change the saw blade?
Well, always unplug the cord.
If you don't have a
or
plug?
the battery.
Okay, would you do it, really?
50-50,
okay,
probably.
Good. That's what I wanted to hear. No, because we know that this is really, really important to basically remove the battery pack. And we also know the practical side. Most every trader forgets about this, especially because there's no cord that reminds him there could be a certain danger. So because it is that way, we built an additional safety in. That means if you fold this one out, this fast fix lever, it allows us to catch the saw. I have to remove this. That's live.
Oh yeah,
because it's a brand new additional splinter guard, so we have to take this out. This. So it allows us to catch the saw in a depth where we can basically reach the fixing screw.
So now you can hear it click.
The key. Yeah. Now it's already.
Oh, it's already clicked in.
Just turn it. So you hear the click for the height adjustment, and you got the click for the spindle lock.
Yeah.
So it's quite comfortable to open and to change the saw blade and replace it against one of the other ones. If you want to go over, you can show this our participants over there.
We are quickly.
Just briefly.
I just gotta talk really loud. So we got different saw blades. We got the yellow ones. The yellow coated ones are for wood. The more teeth they got, the finer the cut's gonna be, probably. Cross cuts, yeah. Then you got the red labeled ones. Those are for hard materials, kind of like flooring or Corian. I don't know if that's a thing. Laminated pieces.
Coated panels.
Then we got the blue coated ones. Those are for aluminum. And this one doesn't have a color, but the packaging is green. Those are for cardboard wall. No, it's not cardboard.
Building materials.
Building materials, yeah. Oh, that's where it's written.
Cement reinforced.
Cement board.
Cement reinforced panels. Correct. Well, these different saw blades in conjunction with the different speed we can set on that dial allows us to use that saw in a very wide range of applications and different materials. Makes it very versatile.
Then I think we can move over.
Can we? Good.
Because we got a saw that is slightly similar but still very different.
It's still, you mean this one, this particular one?
Yeah.
Still is dusty. So basically the difference between a plunge saw and a classic standard circular saw is the design and of course where you would like to use it. The track saw mainly makes sense if you work straight cuts on a track. The standard saw is designed with an open housing that allows you to control the saw blade. So if you cut after a scribe line, then that's a much better choice, because here that saw is designed for the best possible dust extraction while the cover is completely closed.
Yeah.
And you can't even, if you like, and if you use a transparent window, it's only just a small spot where you can see the saw blade. So this is way better, way more comfortable if you have to control hand-guided or manually a scribe line.
And you don't have to push it down, it stays the depth, and the cut saw always has to get pushed to the...
You have a nice and comfortable preset, and as you can see on these both indicators,
Same.
we of course have the chance to use this on a standard track saw. So all our HKCs are compatible to the existing guide rail saw or to the tracks that we sold 25 years ago.
Yeah,
It still fits. Never ever has been changed something. So that's possible, but it's not that comfortable if you compare it with a plunge saw on the track.
And also it has those tiny green screws to basically make it fit perfect on the track.
Of course, yeah, that's a standard.
Exactly.
So even with that particular saw, you can get out a certain quality of your cut. But we have another interesting accessory, another track system looking like this and available in different length. So here we're looking at a 250, that means that's the possible length of your cut. You can cut 250 millimeters.
And that's the shortest one. So we got three. The
We
shortest one.
We got a 420 and we got a 670.
I'm just going to show them real quick. Just around the corner. Not a big deal. And we got the two longer ones. The long one, the 670, is perfect for particle board if you do flooring, for example. And it's basically the width of it.
That's correct. Now the beneficial thing on that saw is that you have your preset cutting depth, like this, depending on your material. If you would like to cut a...
I don't know where we put it.
Oh, piece of wood. There we are.
Ah, found it.
Got it. Yeah, so that's quite easy if you do it manually.
If you're a professional.
I'm not, but I try hard. Not yet. Well, but if it has to be accurate, then of course we are working with a guide rail system, and with the standard guide rail, it's very complicated to line up and to hold it in place and to do your cut. That's why we got this nice little thing where we can connect the track to the saw.
So you're not holding it, it's basically attached to the saw.
Yeah, we got a T-groove in the base of the table, and we got the counterpart on the track.
Yeah.
And that answers the question, maybe is the TS or TSC compatible to that track saw system? No, it's not. Not yet. You never know what happens in 3 years' time.
Yeah.
Even I don't. But from today's point of view, it's not compatible. And it basically makes no sense, because that's the beneficial thing. Once you cut it, your protector swings open, you can do the cut, and if you pull it back, the cut is the stopper is again protected. So that's why we have different stops. We have one fixed stop right here and one movable stop, and this is how we can basically set our different angles.
Yeah.
So We have these presets, of course at 0 degree, and otherwise we just lock this in place with this thumb screw, and that gives you a dead perfect straight cut, nice and square. Yeah. If you give it some more time, it gets even finer. You can combine this also with a certain inclination, and then you hold your fixed stop and just turn against your feel until you feel the other one. And for some joiners or roofers, it's also important that you have this double miter cut. So then and once you've done this setting, this particular setting, of course, this is like a memory function. You can cut hundreds more and they would be all the same.
Yep.
And that's a big beneficial thing and the difference between your standard circular saw and a plunge saw.
So one thing that's important for me to mention, the saw blades, even though the cutting depth is the same and the width of the saw blade, and not the width, but the size of the saw blade is the same, the width is different. So that's why on the saw blade of the HKC there's a mark that basically says don't use it on a TS or a TSC 55. There we go. Because it is slightly thinner. So it has a width of 1.8 millimeters, and on the TSC is 2.2 millimeters. According to, especially with the battery-driven saws, it only has one battery, and the plunge cut saw has two batteries. And so having a wider saw blade would drain the battery really, really quickly.
The background is different. So here we are looking at a very handy saw.
Yeah.
And of course, many might say it's only 0.4 of a millimeter less. That's correct. It's not much. But if you figure it out, percent in percent, that's way over 20% less material you have to chip. And because we run this saw, because of the weight, only with one battery, we got with the thinner saw blade a longer cutting length out of one battery charge. That's the point. And the other way around, it doesn't fit because the flange of a TS55 is designed for 2.2 saw blade, and that's why these thinner saw blade would slip.
Yeah. So
you can't transmit the performance of the motor to the saw blade.
Exactly. Well, of course, HKC, dust extractor, all the tiny bag in the back. You can use both. It's totally up to you. And we talked about the length. For the regular rail, they come from 80 centimeters up to 5 meters, but you can also connect them. So if you have two shorter ones, you can make a longer one. It's very compatible.
That's what we're going to show in a further session. Maybe only around these available accessories and to point out what's the secret behind it.
But today is mainly about the machines themselves.
Correct.
So we talked about the circular saw. I think we got most of that. We got the plunge saw. I think we can jump over to the jigsaws. Or do you have anything else?
Not at the moment. So with the jigsaw,
I think we can just turn the table around.
Yeah, I think that makes life easier. Got it?
Yep. Brakes are in. Oh, we can't talk about that one. So there's a new 90-degree angle attachment to the rail. Since we're not going to talk about accessories that much, but you can just attach it to the back of the rail, have an easy 90-degree cut. It's just a new thing, that's why it was laying around. But, back to topic. So, we got two different cordless jigsaws. Power-wise, functionality, and so on and so forth, they're basically similar.
Absolutely same. So it's really a question of personal taste, which one you would choose, which one is your choice, and this is exactly something that points out Festool, because we have an extraordinary service. So once you have doubts which one is your choice, you just go out and go for a trial. And if you try this one and find out, okay, it's not my style, you just put it back to your dealer and take the other one with you. So this is something you can really find out for you personally within 15 days, 15 working days, which one is best. If you're not sure which one is your choice.
Or you call one of my kind, basically, and you can come over, explain them, you can try them with us.
The other option.
And then head out and you know what you want.
Well, as Phil mentioned already, it's technically exactly the same tool. It's really, for example, differing in, let's say, the size of your hands.
Yeah.
I have tiny, small hands, as you can see. I might struggle gripping this tool. So for persons that have really small hands, this might be really a good choice. So as you know from your personal experience, you will might find more and more women in the joiner shops. They of course have smaller hands, and that's why they get maybe more pleasure with this thinner handle. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, both saws are designed for either left or right handers, because we have a switch on either side of the machine, no matter where you operate. Most saws are designed for a right hander.
Yeah.
And if you're a left-hander, you would have only this particular switch. For a left-hander, it's tricky to switch the machine on.
So, but the thing is, you only have to use one switch. That's a thing that, or a mistake that happens very often, that people try to use both at the same time, which basically breaks your hand. It's really uncomfortable.
It's either or.
Genau. And just, very German. So either left side or right side, and you only have to push it once, you don't have to keep it pushed. That also happens every now and then.
Yeah, so maybe really something we also have to point out, that these are no mechanical switches, because as you're yourself a joiner, many users work from below, and depending on your material, it might be more or less aggressive, so it might penetrate into the switch.
Yeah.
And damages or blocks it. So this is like you have it in your home, your switch for the lights. You activate the light and you deactivate it. So there's no mechanical switch, it's just an impulse given to the electronic unit, and that's much more durable than a mechanical switch.
And safe.
Absolutely. So on the left hand side we have the dial for the pendulum function, variable between 0, that means the saw blade runs absolutely straight, linear, and depending on the thickness you can switch more and more up to the maximum. So that gives you a faster progress, so you're just done with your job way earlier, but it gives you a rougher cut. And this is why we have this dial, to find out what do I want to achieve. Do I want to have a fast cut, then I put it to the max, or do I have a quality-wise a better cut, then I reduce it maybe a little bit on that. And this is what you would basically make depend on the thickness of your material.
So, and it has a small difference. It has a negative pendulum.
Oh yeah.
So it basically moves down, backwards and up again. So all the chips fall out, and you don't cut further than you actually intend to, because most jigsaws have a positive pendulum and they basically swing forward.
That's it.
And that basically can ruin a cut. Happened to me before.
As you know, since ever, Festool is a company that does things different to all our competitors. And this is, for example, one of these differences, because it's beneficial for you as an end customer.
Talking about differences, also another difference, which is one of the most unique things about the Cavex or the PSC 420, is it has a lot of, well, it's not the speed, but how often the blade moves up and down per minute. So here it's around 3,800 lifts or speed or whatever per minute.
Cutting motions.
Cutting motions, that sounds about right.
So what does it mean if you have a high speed? That means you have a fast work. Yeah? You can save time, and in average, our even our PS300 comes out with 3,000 strokes a minute.
Yeah.
While this one is more than 20% faster. That means from cutting from A to B, you're just faster.
Yeah.
And because it is that way, always remember
Unplug.
to be safe. This is how I connect the blade. There's a spring-loaded mechanism inside that throws out the blade once it's used.
Because it gets hot.
For example, yeah. Either it's blunt or you have worked until right now, and that means the saw blade is hot, and then it's quite neat if you just release that one and throw the saw blade out.
I think most of people that use woodworking machines or are professional carpenters, cabinet makers, whatever, already had that moment where they touched a really hot jigsaw blade and had that kind of like grain
Blisters.
burn into your skin, so it's no fun.
That's annoying. Yeah, that's really. I made this experience too. Well, one important feature on all the jigsaws is we have a removable base, which is a very solid connection, because we want to ensure that the cut gets square.
Yeah.
So we don't have a swiveling segment in here, so it's just stable.
But since you've removed it, we can show another important thing, and those are those two brackets right there.
These ones?
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I fully agree with you, Phil. So, since ever, Festool had, since we are building jigsaws, and that's quite a while, we have an adjustable guide. We had one version where we had an automatic setting, which works quite well, but opened other disadvantages. That's why we stepped back, or had today a mixture of the old and the new system. So now, with this little spanner, with this little Allen key, I can open the gap between the both brackets. And once the perfect setting is when you get in position 3 of your pendulum stroke. Tighten these brackets a little bit so that the saw blade is not getting into them. You can control this by this roller.
Yeah.
As soon as I see a gap, that means it's too tight.
Yeah.
And now can you get this in the best way? You see the gap on the roller. Now I open the whole thing until the blade slips in.
Perfect.
Once it sits on this roller, I just imagine a clock and open 5 more minutes.
That's fine.
That reduces the friction.
Yeah.
You will not ruin or destroy these brackets. Nothing will happen because it's a carbide steel.
Yeah.
But you would make put too much temperature on your blade,
And
so
it will basically
it will get
ruin it.
blunt.
Because if the blade gets too hot, it gets blunt, and you can basically toss it. And if you put the brackets out too far, your cut is not gonna be square or 90 degrees. So that's always important, because saw blades have different width, and even the saw blades that we have different width. So always, if you switch from a different kind of saw blade to another saw blade, check if the brackets fit.
Perfectly. If you want a good result.
Well, if you don't care, then you don't have to check it.
Well, then we have on that dial for the speed setting, of course, from 0.
So why did it turn up? We cranked up the speed to the max, and then it slowed down
in this
again.
automatic mode, this is a reduced no-load speed, just to give the tool longer service life.
Okay.
That's important. So as soon as you get some cutting pressure, it increases the speed to the maximum of your mentioned 3,800 strokes a minute.
Okay.
And that gives you an extraordinary performance and turnability that is, I missed the words. That's why I'm gonna show you.
Exactly. Just show us.
Of course, we mentioned earlier that we have the option of connecting a dust extraction. This is for either sensitive materials, or if you work in a used flat where somebody lives, it would make sense.
Yep.
In your workshop, you might probably skip this because you want to maneuver the tool as good as possible, and that's why the hose is mainly disturbing.
Yeah.
Ready for go?
I am good to go.
I'm giving up. Normally you would have to drill such a hole. It's easy, and it's the crucial thing is that this is not a particularly saw blade that is designed to do curved cuts.
Yeah.
It's just a
regular blade.
Nothing else. Nothing
It's
special.
not really thin or narrow.
And as you have seen, I've done this. I could do this in the full pendulum stroke position.
Yeah.
And that's the big beneficial thing of having a negative pendulum stroke.
Exactly.
Where the blade moves to the back and comes up straight.
Exactly. So what people might have noticed, once you turn on the machine now a couple of times, the light is slightly flickering.
Yeah.
And usually either jigsaws have no light or it's a steady light. Why is there some sort of flickering light happening?
Yeah, we in this electronic unit we also built in a management thing for this illumination on your cutting spot, because many times you really have your light in your back and you can't see. I mean, this is now easy because it's a bright surface, but if you have a wooden surface or a dark surface, you can't even see the scribe line.
Yeah.
And that's why it's really beneficial to have an illumination of your cutting spot. But if you imagine the saw blade moves at a speed of 3,800 revolutions, you can't see your scribe line anyway.
Yeah.
And the strobe light function basically keeps the saw blade in a let's say visual.
It's an optical
resting,
illusion basically.
Yeah.
So
and
it makes you think, or it makes it look like the saw blade is
stopping.
just
And that's why
not
it's
moving.
quite easy to follow a scribe line. But some people can't hear the big function. They would like to change this.
Yeah,
And
because it seems irritating.
it's programmable. So I'll remove the saw blade, and if you grab both switches
Yeah, so the left-handed one and the
at the same
right-handed
time,
one, pull them forward.
for 10 seconds.
So that's quite some time if you're explaining
you-
things.
Yeah, if you have to wait for it.
There we go.
But then it indicates which mode is set
Yeah.
at present. And with the normal right-hander switch on this Carvex side,
So that's the thing to remember, the side that has Carvex written on it.
that's it. With this switch you can switch through the menu. Now we have a permanent light, or we can completely cut it off.
Yeah.
Strobe light, permanent light, off.
Yeah.
If you would like to have the strobe light back, then you just turn around your machine and return the whole thing, and that keeps it as a memory.
And now you programmed it.
That's it.
So, and I always recommend to keep a light on, because it's probably just gonna annoy you when you cut from the downside.
Not this one.
Because
Yeah, because of course
as soon as you turn it, the light turns off.
that's it. Yeah, because these LED lights are pretty aggressive, so they're extremely light, and they would blind you. From that point, it's really annoying if you have these flashing lights. That's why we have a switch that realizes in which position is the saw. So
Yeah.
if once you turn it upside down, it automatically cuts off the light.
Perfect. Anything else for the jigsaw?
Plenty.
Because I think we're almost out of time.
Yeah, Ari.
I think so. I think we got like a couple more minutes. So I'm just gonna show the saw blades real quick, and I think then we're good to go. So I'm trying
If you talk about saw blades, sorry for this, we can also do once more this final cut. I prepare this, and while
you
explain-
prep it. Oh yeah, for the different saw blade. So same thing with the regular blades. They're color coded. So green, building materials. We got tiles and stuff like that. Then we got the yellow coded ones. wood again. So we got the golden one that we used earlier. It's one of the standard blades that you can use all the time. It doesn't make the prettiest cuts, but it's really efficient. This one right here is kind of for straight cuts in hardwoods, which is what Tommy is preparing right now in my bag. Then we got the red coated ones. Those are for acrylic glass, plastic, some kind of hardened material too. We got the curved blades, also color coded yellow, and we got the blue ones for aluminum, metal, and stuff like that. There we go. That's the range of saw blades that we have. Oh, and I forgot those. Those are for insulation materials. Are you ready?
I am, at any time. So here we have now a very interesting blade, which is grinded in the design of a Japanese saw. And you know, Japanese saws, they basically work on the pull, not on the push. And that's why you get really, really straight cuts and a really high surface quality. And that particular design we transferred to our new jigsaw blades, and the result is as follows.
So,
Look at this.
if you check out the cut, of course it's hard to transfer touch over video, but the surface is almost as if sanded. So you could just use a fine grain paper, sand it slightly, and you'd be good to go.
So basically, even if you have to sand it, it would reduce your touch-up time by far.
Yeah.
Because the quality is already quite smooth. So you really save a lot of time by choosing that particular saw blade for visible cuts in solid wood.
Wow.
And it's straight. If you, let's say, I think it's a 50mm multiplex board, so it's really not that easy to cut. But it was. It's not a question of the performance, but finally we have a really interesting system, and also the accessories that we have at Festool are designed to make your life as a trader way easier.
Exactly. Well, then I think
That's it
we're
for today.
good to go. We're done. I'm gonna put down the second camera and the safety goggles. Then a short goodbye, and then we're done with the video. So, thank you for your time. We're gonna continue making Festool live videos, even though that one is gonna be uploaded on YouTube, as far as I know. We're gonna continue with the 18-volt series. So we got drilling, we got screwing, now we got sawing, and the next one's probably gonna be about the angle grinder, oscillator, ISC, the insulation saw, and I think we're good to go.
That's
Got
it.
anything
Sounds
else?
good to me.
Nope.
Yeah. It was a
Then-
pleasure to have you in.
Same.
Thanks very much from my point of view, and see you next time.
Stay safe. Bye.